What's going on? This is the Saturday Down South podcast. I am Connor O'Gara. Will, I am at the point of the calendar where I just need documentary type footage to get me to the start of the season. We don't wish time away in this life. We don't do that. But any given Saturday has satisfied that need for me. And I'm not saying that this is like the best documentary that we have ever seen in the history of sports or anything like that. We will have the executive producer on next week's show. But I got to say, watching this, even though we already know what's going to happen, I'm here for it. And people can criticize it and say like, oh, it's not necessarily like earth-shattering type stuff. I just need football on my television that feels real. And this, to me, at least for what I've watched so far, feels very real.
Yeah, it was such a nice little treat to be starting with the LSU South Carolina game in that series, right? And that's what Box to Box does such a good job is to kind of put you in the middle of a universe. Like they don't go like, this is the best team, this is the worst team. And it's just like they painted Brian Kelly as like this guy who's just like bad luck, can't get over the hump. Like everybody's rooting for him. I'm like, come on, guys. We talked about this off air, but in that game, they didn't talk about like the penalty in the South Carolina game. And so it's just so cool to watch something that is for general market, you know, that makes your sport look so cool. But then knowing like the sicko insider details and being like, you know, turning to your girl every couple of minutes and be like, well, actually, this is what happened. You know, it's a cool experience.
Yeah, I don't care that this stuff happened last year.
Mm-hmm.
I love quarterback. I love receiver on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I know what's going to happen, and I'm still one of these people that just likes watching cool camera angles, and I can be entertained by that, because what else am I going to be watching this time of the year? Hunting Wives. Yeah, we've watched a few episodes. It's weird. It's really weird.
What is Hunting Wives? Yeah. I'm sorry. Is that like a, huh?
It's, speaking of Netflix, let's just say don't watch it with the kids.
Okay.
Don't watch it with the kids. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I had a lot of Brittany Snow stock. I might be selling some of that stock.
Okay.
I'll be honest.
And there's
not my favorite show.
Yeah.
Not my favorite show so far. But yeah, I'll take shows like this any day and all day, because that's going to get us through. That's going to get us through this time of year. So we will be talking more about that on next week's pod. Like I said, with that interview, the plan for today, we're drafting SEC teams. We have a point system. Yeah, point system. We're doing this for real. A bit similar to what Mina Kimes and Golick Jr. have done with the NFL. We brought in our guy, Adam Spencer, to be able to do that, to do a 3-way draft so that we can track this. You know, we each get 5 teams, and so we were able to have a lot of fun with that. Also, Jalin Hyatt, he's going to join us in a little bit. Love catching up with him. And then Lad of the Week. But first, got to talk to you about our friends at Dabble. I've talked about Dabble for the last 6-7 months now on this show. If you're at this time of year and you watch documentaries and you watch live sports, that's probably the only thing that you're watching. What else is there going on before football comes back? Maybe a little Major League Baseball, getting in on the action. Dabble is going to hook you up. It is one of the newest and best apps in the daily fantasy space. They've wasted no time making a name for themselves. Dabble's social function is second to none. They offer a wide variety of sports for making picks, including NBA, MLB, NHL, whatever, you name it, they've got it. Use the promo code SDS2 when you sign up today. Receive $25 in bonus cash, courtesy of the good folks at Dabble. Again, no deposit required, $25 in bonus cash with that promo code SDS2. All right, so here's how this is going to work. We are going to do the draft first and then Jalin Hyatt. So let's kick it to our draft of SEC teams for 2025. Okay, so we have a friend joining us, Adam Spencer, executive editor, Saturday Down South. Might have heard of him. Had Adam on once or twice. Adam brought something to us that is a great idea to close draft season. This is our final draft because obviously the season starts next month. This month, actually, we're in a football month, but this will be the last draft that we do. And we are, Adam, explain this here, because we're kind of stealing an idea from Mina Kimes and Golick Jr. by drafting SEC teams. They draft NFL teams, but you had the idea, let's do this with SEC teams.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my favorite podcasts that Mina does every year. So, I mean, it's like, okay, well, you know, we're not copying her idea by doing the same thing for the NFL. We're doing it with college football. So shout out to Mina Kimes. You know, that's a great podcast every year. But yeah, we're going to do this with SEC teams, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
So we'll hopefully be able to track this and provide updates during the season and different from our other drafts, which well, there's like the popular vote, and then there's the who actually won it.
Listen, America is a republic, not a democracy. People always forget this. They talk about us promoting democracy. America is a republic, and that is settled on the field, folks. So I feel like I've probably lost the popular vote about 70% of the time, but that's okay because that's not what determines elections. All right.
Look, I didn't know that we were going there to start off, but you're right. This will be a little bit more
Connor, here's a
straightforward.
better one. In the Cubs World Series, Cleveland had more base runners. People forget. And
Did they?
Yeah, they did.
I'm going to
Nobody
log
cares.
off if we talk more about the Cubs. So
That's also part of this as well. The winning team gets to pick the losing team's Twitter X avatar for a week, which Adam and I have done this before, and it's basically just what sort of offensive Cubs Cardinals thing can we do to each other? Maybe
Actually,
Bears
Connor, if I
Packers.
never said that to you, that was the thing I said for a couple of years. It was like, well, it didn't matter. That's actually pretty funny. I've never brought this up on the spot, but yes, that
I
was not
appreciate
just
that.
random. Yeah.
No, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Wow.
We've all moved past it. Results are the only thing that matters. Results. This is how this is going to work. Scoring system. And for those who want to kind of follow this at home, each regular season win will be worth 1 point. A non-playoff bowl win will be worth 2 points. SEC championship berth, 2 points. SEC title, 3 points. Playoff berth, 3 points. A pre-title playoff game win is 3 points. A national title berth is 4 points. A national title win is 5 points. You're going to draft 5 teams from the SEC. There's going to be one vacant team. And that one vacant team, here's another little caveat. That one vacant team is a free agent. So if you play like fantasy football, something like that, waiver wire, you can only do one trade during the season. But the free agent team is the only team that's able to get picked up. So, for example, if the team that isn't drafted here is, I'm just going to speculate wildly, if that team is Mississippi State or Kentucky, then let's just say for this argument, it's Mississippi State. The Mississippi State is the free agent team. Let's say Adam decides in week 5, oh my God, Diego Pavia tore his ACL and he's actually not able to play football. Diego Pavia tore 2 ACLs and he's unable to walk. He cannot play football. I'm bailing on Vandy. I would like to pick up Mississippi State. Adam can do that. That's just one trade for the year. But then the free agent team that is available to be picked up or to be traded, I guess, becomes Vandy in that spot. So there's a little bit of strategy that can go with something like that.
So then when Pavia gets out of his hospital bed to beat Hugh Freeze once again,
You see the vision.
Will can pick up Vanderbilt. And
Correct.
Yeah.
But would be the best time to buy is when an opposing quarterback comes out of a hospital bed to beat one Hugh Freeze. Yes, you're exactly right. So
now I had a question about that. So, obviously we're not trading past stats. Like if I see like, oh, like I have Kentucky and Mississippi State's hot, like I don't, and like Mississippi State's 3-0, Kentucky's 1-2 to start the season. I don't get the 3 wins for Mississippi State when I pick them up. Correct.
Correct. That is correct.
Okay.
You don't inherit the wins. It's all about what that team does for you moving forward. So we would document that when exactly that move happened, and then go forth from there. Yeah, because otherwise it'd be almost impossible to trade. You'd have to basically trade the exact same amount of wins too,
Right.
and hope that worked out. So trades among each other. Does that overcomplicate things? Are we willing to do that? I doubt we would come to a trade amongst each other that would feel fair and balanced, but we can do it. We can allow for it to happen but it would pretty much all have to be like, 1v1 trades. And they would be, just like you said, Adam, it would be the wins moving forward, not inheriting past wins to do that. Does that all sound good?
Oh, good.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so
All right.
I have a South Carolina American quarter here. Adam, you are going to call this. If you get it right, you get to pick where you start in the draft order. If you get it wrong, Will gets to pick where he starts in the draft order. So call it in the air.
Tails.
We did land tails. It
All right.
never fails.
Never fails. Yeah.
It never does. So you can pick where you want to start. And snake draft, by the way, as well.
Right.
So Third pick, obviously, you get 3 and 4. People know how snake drafts works.
And for that reason, that's why I'm going to pick the number 3 slot here. I think that I'll explain it when it gets to my turn, but I think that I'm going to take the 3.
I think that's a smart move. Will, where would you like to pick?
I'll go right in the middle. I'll go 2.
I was really fearful of that. Really fearful of that. Which means I have the very first pick of this draft, and I am not going to like the way I can look into the crystal ball and already feel totally unconfident in my pick. Let's start in a place that I don't think people will think I would go. My first pick is going to be Georgia.
Oh, wow. Okay, right off the bat here.
I'm not going to pick LSU, even though I picked LSU to win a national championship, and this is about floor. Because the bust potential for Georgia compared to LSU is just so different, in my opinion. And I think there are things that push Georgia in that number 1 spot for a very obvious reason. Historically speaking, like I went back and looked this up. But Kirby, his average losses heading into a conference championship week from 2017 to 2024 is 0.5. 4. That's it. 4 in that 8-year stretch. That is the amount of pre-conference championship losses that he has had. You are banking on him having 1 or 2 losses going into the postseason. The fact that the schedule sets up really well, 3 true road games, only 1 against a bowl team. I just think that Georgia is the safest number 1 overall pick, and it's pretty much baked in the fact that it's still Kirby Smart, even though we've got all these questions about Georgia this year.
Yeah, I think that's honestly a really easy number 1 pick. I would have gone there as well. I just kind of wanted the ability to come back around. But yeah, I think that's a smart one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, obviously Gunnar Stockton, you're going to need that. You're going to need some receivers to actually receive the football this year.
They're working on it. They're going to figure it out.
I know you're not high on Nate Frazier, but I think you are high on Josh McCray, who they got from Illinois, and I am too. So I think that that was a really good pickup. So, I mean, I think the offense will be fine. Defensively, I think, there's obviously, like you said, there's a floor that's really, really high under Kirby Smart there, even when you lose 23 guys to the NFL every year. So it's not where I would have gone with number 1. So I'll see if my number 1 pick is still there after Will.
Fire away.
So this is such an interesting one, right? And I think odds-wise, or just kind of like how you'd view it, spoil the pick here. I'm not going to pick LSU here, right?
Ooh,
and so
okay.
I'm between Texas and actually Alabama. And what scares me about Texas is the Ohio State game. Just in terms of overall, going to Columbus, coming off of that. I do think that their schedule sets up pretty well. You can kind of, again, now we're literally just playing the schedule game, right, between these 2 teams.
It's a big part of this.
That's a huge part of this. Now, I might sound crazy here, folks, but I'm going to go ahead and draft Alabama number 2 overall.
Wow.
It is harder for me to find losses on this schedule than it is for either LSU, who plays at Clemson, or Texas, who plays at Ohio State to start the season.
I think this is the smart way to go, because is Kalen DeBoer about to have an 8-4 season? No. You're not going to lose the draft necessarily if you're banking on 9-3, which would still be hitting the under on 9.5 wins. They do have the 10 power conference games though, which make of that what you will.
I'm sorry, they play power conference games in the SEC, Connor. That's crazy. Have you logged on Twitter.com lately?
Look, my alma mater might have said a couple of things about that in case you missed it. But look, it is interesting though that they have a schedule that you could spin in a lot of different ways. Like you really can if you're trying to project floor and what that looks like. But I don't have a problem with it being the number 2 pick. I considered it for number 1. I do have a little bit of pause with the 10 power conference games and thinking 10-2 could be the ceiling as opposed to 11-1.
There might just be a Gus Malzahn statement game in here against FSU where I'm sitting here going, what was I doing, boys? How did I ever doubt the Gus bus?
I mean, the Thomas Castellanos statement game. Yeah. Adam, would you have gone with Bama at 2, or are you happy with what you're going to get with 3 and 4?
in all honesty here, I thought that I would be getting Georgia and Alabama at 3 and 4. So
Wow.
I at least thought I was going to get Alabama with one of my picks here. So I'm not upset with where it turned out, but I mean, I think we can. The reason that I picked the number 3 slot is because I think that there are 4 teams from the SEC that will make the playoff, 4 teams that will be in the mix at the end of the year to be in the SEC championship game, and I wanted my hands on 2 of them, and I got the 2, not the 2 that I think, but I'm not upset. I'll make uh, for keeping track of things, I'll make Texas my number 3 overall pick. And I think that you picked Georgia, Connor. I'm taking Texas here. They both had over-unders of 9.5 wins, and they were the highest on BetMGM, minus 190 on the over. So everybody thinks that they're going over, and I'm with them. I think that, we were talking about schedule. The way that this plays out, like, even if they do lose at Ohio State, which I'm not saying is like going to happen at all. Like, I think that Ohio State has a lot of similar questions that Texas has. Obviously Ohio State has Jeremiah Smith coming back, but it's about, like, do they have the quarterback who's going to be ready to step in and get Jeremiah Smith the ball? But even if they lose that game in Columbus, which wouldn't be shocking, I mean, I'm playing the long game here. I think that as far as SEC schedules go, Texas has a decently favorable one. So I'm in on Texas. I think Arch Manning, I think that the preseason Heisman hype is a little overblown, but he will be a solid quarterback.
Adam, if they win that Texas at Ohio State game, just cash.
Then it's over,
now.
Boys. Yeah, it's over, boys. I'm winning this whole thing. Like, if they go into Ohio State, win.
There would be a lot of people feeling good about those over bets, just because the schedule is weird in that they don't have a home game weeks 5 through 9, but only one of those games is against a team with the winning record last year, and that's the Florida game. So it's strange from that standpoint, because there are headliners in there, but you do feel like if they get through Ohio State, man, there could be a really favorable path for Texas to be able to get into the college football playoff, even as a 9-3 team with a favorable schedule, which usually those 2 things we don't really talk about as much, but that could be on the table. I think Texas would have been I think Texas getting to number 3 is actually the biggest surprise so far of the draft.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I and I could have put them to number 4 if I wanted to, but
the graphic wouldn't have looked as good if you did that.
Have looked as good. Yeah. But I'm happy with getting LSU in the 4 spot here. Connor's national championship pick. I have them number 2 in my post media days power rankings after Texas. So I've got my top 2 teams in my power rankings. I'm happy with that. I think that this offense is going to be incredible. I think they're going to do enough on defense to win 9 games, 10 games in the regular season. I mean, I think that this is a team that could beat Alabama. Connor, I think I forget what you have coming in your crystal ball tomorrow. Did you have Alabama winning that game, or?
No, I did not, Adam. No, I did not.
LSU winning that game. That's what I thought. So, yeah, I'm happy with this. I think Garrett Nussmeier, all told, I put some money on Garrett Nussmeier last year to be the number 1 pick in the 2025 NFL draft, just on a flyer. And if he came out, who knows how the pre-draft process could have gone. So I'm happy with LSU here. I like Garrett Nussmeier. I like their receivers. I think their defense is fine.
You know what's weird about this schedule, and I didn't realize this until looking at it this morning. If that week 5 game at Ole Miss is at night, they will have only night games until week 7, which, when you think of LSU, you think of LSU playing at night, and LSU at its best. It doesn't mean every single one of those games obviously are at home at night, but they all could be at Death Valley at night, with the exception of that Ole Miss game. So, yes, we're including Clemson in that discussion by saying that.
So, Death Valley Junior, as Brian Kelly called it.
Right.
Speaking of Clemson in that game, I want to ask Will about this as the resident LSU guy here. But, my one concern about LSU is if they lose that game, does that spiral from there? Like, if it's a close game and they lose, does that spiral from there? Because I don't see them getting blown out, which would be obviously a disaster. But if they lose, I'm fine with that with this pick at number 4 because like it's just one game. But does that one game carry over into that Ole Miss game maybe where they lose that one too? Like how do
as
you
far as
see
one
that?
game, you're talking about the Clemson game, right?
Yeah, I think if they lose that, then it could set up for like some more like disappointing, I guess, losses down the road. Not necessarily week 2 because I think they bounce back with a nobody school, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, hey, look, the cool thing about Brian Kelly at LSU is that he doesn't just kill you. He really just slowly drags you across the hot coals. So what he does is he makes you like kiss the season goodbye week 1. And then he goes, wait a minute. This is actually going to be the best team in the SEC for like 2 random weeks of the year. You just don't know which ones. Is it going to be, against Mizzou with Jaden Daniels? Is it going to be, are you going to get the Alabama game last year? So that's the beautiful thing about Brian Kelly is it's a box of chocolates. Losing week 1, he's more prepared than any coach in college football history to do that. Because I don't know if any coach has ever lost week 1 and finished with non-disappointing seasons 3 years in a row.
Six consecutive wins after the USC loss last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was 5 or 6 where they led into that A&M game playing for the last unbeaten team in conference play in the SEC. And you're right. I mean, he's got 9 wins in each of the last, 8 seasons? So 2017, 2024, the only coach in America with a longer streak of 9-win seasons is Dabo. That's it. And of course, week 1, everybody's going to be looking at that. But again, just like we talked about with Texas, if LSU wins that game at Clemson, which is a huge, huge if, of course, the vibes are going to be so different.
I'll be so ignorant on here. Oh,
I almost
it's going to
worry
sound
about
like
that.
Waterboy for like, give me 3 Waterboy minutes and then I'll be back to myself. Don't worry.
I know, seriously. All right, so that the top 4 was, I think, pretty obvious how it was going to play out. Those teams in whatever order they were going to come out, that was going to be the top 4 in this draft. This is where it gets interesting, though, because, man, 5 through 11 in the SEC, we've been talking about it for a while. You can go in so many different directions with it, and the team that's 5th in this draft might not actually be better than the team that's picked 11th, but schedule and the variance in it could determine how this is going to play out. So, Will, who are you going with at number 5 overall?
Man, so this is going to be just a classic confusing draft by me. I'm glad that you had that preface because I wouldn't exactly pick this team to be one of the better teams in the SEC. We've talked about it this year. We talked about it last year. And, there's kind of a rotating axis of who is the best teams or who are the best teams in the SEC and who have the easiest schedules. Now, there are 2 teams I could have picked from here, but Connor, I think I got to go South Carolina.
Interesting.
Wow.
Okay. I'm surprised.
I think I got to go South Carolina. I think that you could certainly find – so I'll tell you who I was between. I was actually between South Carolina and Mizzou. And the reason being because of Mizzou's schedule. But I do like South Carolina's talent a little bit better. I feel like we've kind of gone the other way where we talked about they were a little bit overhyped. Lenore Sellers getting first team preseason All-SEC. And I actually like Mizzou's ball club. I'll pick them to probably win 9 or 10 games this year just overall, right? Count the ball game depending on how you do it. But I think that not having quarterback exactly figured out. I think Lenore Sellers was responsible for 3-4 wins by himself last year. You could count the Old Dominion win in there, honestly. And so,
if they had put Robbie Ashford, if Robbie Ashford had been South Carolina's starting quarterback last year, are they 4-8? I think that's very much in play. With all due respect to Robbie Ashford, who's going to do great things with our new friend of the program, Jake Dickard at Wake Forest. That's probably a 4. You know what? The defense, though, was still so good. I'll give them 5-7. They're a 5-7 team with Robbie Ashford at quarterback.
Yeah. And I was watching that the series that came out last night, I think it was Saturday, and it's just, man, reliving that game and the minute Sellers comes out of the game, it was just deflated. So, I mean, hopefully he stays healthy. That's another part of it. As he goes down, it might be going, hey, guys, what you got? We got South Carolina. Sellers are looking good. So, but yeah, I think that at this point, guys, Beamer's like a little bit recession-proof, ?
Maybe he could be, and I think there are still skeptics about him. Matt Hayes and I go back and forth about this all the time about Beamer and whether or not he can actually sustain success. But what's interesting about South Carolina is that they made a pretty significant splash by getting Aaron Noland from Ohio State, who was on the wrong end of the Julian Sayin transfer. after Julian saying is like, hey, this isn't, I signed up to play for Nick Saban. I'm going to go to Ohio State. And now all eyes are going to be on him this year. And Aaron Nolan was in the same class, not as decorated, and basically said, like, I got to find a new home. And South Carolina kind of swooped in and made a pretty significant offer to get somebody that had a big time market. And so now he steps into this role as a backup, which South Carolina has not had in a long time. Quarterback depth has not been a thing in Columbia in a very long time. So like you talk about what it could mean if Lenore Sellers can't stay healthy. He's still considered a project, but does he elevate their floor? Possibly he could, and he could pop and be one of those guys that also we're talking about a lot more because of a Sellers injury. I just hope that Sellers doesn't get hurt because, man, that schedule is still brutal. Like it's still a lot, Will. That's why I wouldn't have picked him at 5, just purely based on like 7 post-September games that they have, and 5 of them are against teams that are already ranked in the preseason coaches poll. Make of what you will with the coaches poll, but it's a really, really tough schedule. And they're one of those 3 teams that's got the 10 power conference games.
Yeah, very, very true. And like, I think in the SEC, it's what I look for in the SEC with the schedule is like automatic losses, right? And I just don't see a ton of automatic losses on their schedule. There's pick'em games. There's always going to be that in the SEC. But they are able to avoid some of those games. And something that's interesting to me, and again, this might just all be noise or whatever. If Sellers were to be playing at a limited capacity, let's not, talk about injury. But one thing that some of the South Carolina writers were talking to me about at media days that I thought was really interesting was they said Doty would be the guy for a minute just from playbook familiarity. They weren't really comfortable with Nolan and what they had seen in practice. So I think as long as they can get enough in kind of that first season or the first part of the season out of Sellers to where if they had to get away from him, they could get Nolan up to speed. That would toward that stretch of games that you're talking about. I feel good and ready for that.
Yeah. I just really hope he stays healthy, man.
Yes.
I want DJ Lagway. I want Lenore Sellers to stay healthy this year because if they don't, their teams will be in really, really rough shape. Adam, did you have South Carolina this high up on your board?
No, I was thinking I might get them my next go around here, but I'm not like you said, 5 through 11. I'm not going to be shocked if I am, like if my number 5 team is still here when I'm drafting, I'm not going to be shocked, but we'll see. We'll see what Connor does with his 2 picks here.
This is the only redeeming quality of having the number 1 pick in this draft is I feel really good about who I'm able to get here. I got my number 5 and number 6 teams, and I'm gonna go with Ole Miss.
That was my number 5 as well.
And you have to before people say like that this team is destined for regression, you have to look at the schedule. It is so favorable because weeks 1 through 7, lone road game is at Kentucky, and with all due respect to Washington State, I don't consider them a power conference team anymore, which means that Ole Miss is playing 8 power conference games, and there is still a lot to like. I just think Pete Golding is better than people give him credit for. I understand all the talent that they lost on defense. And I'm just an Austin Simmons believer. So if you're going to factor in those things and understand that Lane Kiffin has typically operated better when he's been more of like a back end of the top 25 top 25 type of team, I think that there is a lot to like with Ole Miss of at least having that 8-4, maybe 9-3 type season. I've kind of mapped out the possibility of them being 8-2 going into that redemption penultimate game against Florida and what that could set up to be with Florida coming into town, hopefully with a healthy DJ Lagway, and what Oxford would be like, because you kind of go through the schedule and you realize getting to 8-2 to that point for Ole Miss is not crazy at all.
Yeah, I think
how
so.
How hot of a take is it to say that I think Austin Simmons is going to be top 10 in Heisman voting this year?
Not hot.
Like I think not hot. I think it'll be 6 through 10, but I think he's going to be there.
He's going to put up crazy numbers. I don't know that they've got the ground game issues figured out, even though before last year you could just set it and forget it. Logan Diggs doing things in fall camp that are making the rounds. We'll just leave it there.
Good for him, man. Yeah.
I hope Logan Diggs could stay healthy as well. But yeah, I would not be surprised at all if Austin Simmons finished as an all-SEC quarterback, put up 35 touchdown passes and just was one of these guys that we're talking about going, man, that guy, he looks completely dialed in, and he's fueling them in all these given weeks, again, with a really favorable schedule. So I'm excited to get Ole Miss there. This pick might be a little bit controversial, but I feel good about getting them at this point. I'm going with A&M.
That was my number 6 too. So
Yep.
Okay, so that makes me feel a little bit better. This is actually, I think you could spin the schedule in a lot of different ways. I really do. The road teams that they faced this year, I added up their records. The road teams that A&M will face this year went a combined 53-18 last season. That's not good. That's not good for a team that was really bad on the road pre-Mike Elko, and that's a little bit more still a question mark, but they were able to somewhat get over the hump last year, the Florida game, and how convincing that was early on. But I think people see such a limited ceiling with A&M, and it would scare them off from a draft like this, and understandably so, a team that has not played in a conference championship game in the 21st century, something that I always bring up. And you could look at that and go, well, you're not going to get the possibility of those big time points later on. I still, though, think that people forget the 8-win thing is still a value at this point. Like, I went back and tried to find all of the teams in the SEC who have won 8 games at least 10 times since A&M joined the SEC. So we're talking about, what is that, 13 seasons, 2012, 2024. In that same time frame, these are the only other SEC teams that have won at least 8 games 10 times. Alabama, Georgia, LSU. That's it. I think there's value in that. And if Marcel Reed takes that next step, I think we're talking about a team that has at least has a 9-3 ceiling. Maybe not an SEC championship type ceiling, though.
Listen, if you want a team that historically has about a 9-3 season, I think you've done it.
Well, I mean, we just had, the jokes going around on Twitter 2 days ago, August 4th, 8-4. That was Texas A&M Day, according to social media there. Mm-hmm. So
a touching tribute.
Yeah, and I mean, the odds are there. Texas A&M's over under is 7.5, and it's minus 175 on the over. So people think they're gonna get to at least 8-4, which is historically what they do. So, I think, this is also a dark horse team. They were a dark horse team last year. If they beat Texas in that last game, which was always going to be a tough task, they would have been in the SEC championship. So, I mean, there's your points there if they do that, and we'll see if they can put themselves in that position again this year.
They were very close, and with some coaches being very close, it feels like I can say, well, you were close, but I don't trust you to be the person to get over the hump. One, Hugh Freeze, Scott Frost, if you want to go back to the Nebraska one-score games. I don't find myself saying that yet with Mike Elko. Maybe it's too early in his tenure as a head coach at the FBS level, but we'll see if he's losing these games that feel very winnable. And you could go back and look at A&M season last year and say, man, like a couple of things break differently, and we're having a much different conversation. I realize that's been said a lot for A&M, but I just don't think they're that far off from being a potential 9-win team. So this is now the part where I think people are going to get really upset with who comes off the board first. But Will, it is your pick, and I think you can go in like 3 different directions that wouldn't surprise me.
I think he already hinted at who he was going to pick here, so we'll see.
I think he did.
Yeah, I was trying to gaslight Connor. I'll be honest, he didn't fall for it. So, I'll say my overall strategy here as I'm looking at it is I'm like, man, Connor ended up with better teams than me too. This is great. But just to quickly wrap around, right? I think the 2 teams that you took are better, right? Like they're going to be in the top half of the SEC. I think there are some nightmare stretches of the schedule. I kind of talked about like games that you can kind of just pencil in as like, okay, you're going to be so like, an at Georgia, at Alabama type game where it's like, I just got to write that in as a loss. And now I will actually go around and take the Mizzou Tigers. I love their schedule.
I was hoping to get them, obviously, with my next pick.
Well, remember, you have LSU, so we can organize a trade here. We can trade quarterbacks if LSU season blows up, and we'll just do this whole thing together. But no, credit to, and again, like, I'm not just saying this because I've been here. I've kind of been all over this, but as much kind of crap as Mizzou gets online, and as much like Drink can be kind of a goofy guy, right? But he has consistently built an identity out of this team, and he's done so by kind of looking himself in the mirror, which is kind of what you don't see out of him, or what you don't like think about him, because he's so out there, he's so loud. And let me just give another couple of examples of this. You just talked about Texas A&M. Texas A&M had such a loud season last year, right? Where they were just, every game was something crazy. Florida was kind of able to do the opposite, where everybody wrote them off so early that they were slowly able to climb up. And I think that Mizzou is going to be able to kind of have an off the radar season, right? I think they're gonna, people's expectations of them are pretty low, and so I don't think it's gonna like be last year where you had these guys coming back, Brady Cook, and you know, all of kind of the leadership, minus our guy, the running back. What was his name again?
Schrader, Cody Schrader.
Minus Schrader, like a ton of the leadership came back from Mizzou. This year is kind of a whole new team, new guard, and I think that obviously the quarterback situation leaves a little bit to be desired. That's kind of your biggest variance here. But I think that if we trusted Drink to kind of get off the hot seat, we talked about kind of being around that 7-win mark, things looking very similar, giving the ball to Larry Roundtree a billion times, and then they bring in a whole new offense. They trust their quarterback in ways they never have. They have these creative play designs. And I'm like, well, the big change already happened. You know, the big change was getting over that hump. And so even with a little bit of regression in this schedule, I'm getting to where I just kind of a quiet Mizzou season could do a ton for me here.
Adam, can I just say that the over under 7.5 in plus 120 on the over? Like, what are they looking at? People just see Mizzou and they just are like, oh, they suck. And it makes me so mad. And it just,
even if you think Mizzou is average, it's one of the most favorable SEC schedules I've ever seen going into a season. Now, it doesn't mean it'll play out like that, but even if teams on that schedule are significantly better than what we're talking about, like,
shout out UMass.
UMass at home this year, thankfully.
Yeah,
Ryan Bamford.
That's a big deal.
Ryan Bamford couldn't swing the 2-for-1 his way, but yeah, they still obviously have to get through UMass. But like, nothing but home games until week 8.
Right.
It's one game in a non-bordering state at Auburn. It's a little bit unfair though, because Missouri and Tennessee, I looked this up. They are tied for the most bordering states of all the other states. They border 8 states. I wanted to look that up because I was curious.
You're not getting this stat anywhere else, folks. That's a Conor O'Gara special.
But I heard that Mizzou wasn't in the South, even though Missouri borders literally every southern state, but like Florida, it seems like, right? So
yeah, it sets up so well as long as, and you might want to hear about this, Adam, as long as Bo Perbula is not Brock Vandegrift 2.0. As long as that's not the case and he's at least decent, can they at least have, if they can have a one-dimensional offense, this is an 8-4 type team. They just gave Corey Batoon that big extension. They like what they saw from him in the post-Blake Baker era. And this is a situation that just screams favorable winning schedule. And I don't know that everybody else in the SEC has the floor that Mizzou does. Like, that's kind of the weird thing to process. But Adam, can I give you a little bit of catnip to chew on for your Tigers here? Because this is another thing that I had to look up just to get out ahead of this if this situation presents itself. Not predicting that it will, but just in case it does. Okay, so Eli Drinkwitz is going for his 3rd consecutive 10-win season, which would be beyond wildest expectations for when he was hired, when he took over. Lane Kiffin's also trying to do that as well, by the way. The list of coaches who did that in the SEC in the 21st century. Get ready for this. Here we go. Nick Saban, ever heard of him?
Sure.
Kirby Smart, Les Miles, Steve Spurrier, Mark Richt. That's the entire list. Notable absent names from that list: Urban Meyer and Philip Fulmer, who did it in the 90s but didn't do it in the 21st century. He's 1 year away with a super, super favorable schedule of joining that echelon. And he'd be kind of like, all right, which one of these guys doesn't belong? But still, I don't think it's as crazy as some would think going into this season.
In all honesty, when Nick Saban retired, I was worried that they were at least I think that they should have at least interviewed Drinkwitz. Like, he deserves to be getting interviewed in these big positions. I know it would have been, but like, I don't think that
Tuscaloosa media would have had too much fun with him.
Like, I'm not gonna say that they made a mistake by hiring Kalen DeBoer, because I like Kalen DeBoer and I think he's gonna do well there. I just think that Drinkwitz should have gotten an interview. I'm not saying they should have hired him, but anyway.
Let's
let me
make
ask
that the
you.
clip. Can we make that the clip, Will, for this episode? Mizzou grad Adam Spencer says Eli Drinkwitz should have been interviewed for the Alabama job, and
After
why
Nick
didn't he get
Saban.
it? Yeah.
Real
From
quick,
GOAT.
Adam, if you could paint me a picture, like 30 seconds, because I know I'm gonna panic. I gotta ask you this now. If Prebula doesn't work out, like the Sam Horn, like what are we looking at there? Is that the plan if Prebula doesn't work out?
I mean, that's the plan. I don't know how good it is. If
Okay.
if Prebula doesn't work out, you're. I mean, I'm like
We're cooked.
Sam Horn. I mean, like he's just been injured every time. Like if he wanted to be a quarterback, he needs to give up baseball. But he was just a pick by the Dodgers in like the 21st round or 15th round or something like that. So he showed. I mean, I think he signed with them, and they're like letting him come back to
Okay, so
compete for the
athlete,
quarterback
we'll
job.
write that
So-
in the positive
but
column.
but like injury concern for sure. Like he hasn't like played a full season of baseball yet, I don't think. But let me ask you guys this: if you could sign up right now to have Prebula be Marcel Reed from last year,
Yeah, I would take that.
does Mizzou get to 8-9 wins?
Yes.
I
Yes,
think so
yes, it
too.
does.
I think so too. Even with the concerns about throwing it down the field and the mid-range throws, like if he puts up, because I think he's going to be a really good runner. I think he's going to be a better pure runner than Brady Cook was. Brady Cook was very good with his legs.
Sneaky athletic, they called him.
Yes, yes. But like I think Prebula's ceiling as a runner is higher. I think Hardy is going to be better than any running back that they had. The offensive line has some questions, but if you can just get what Marcel Reed did for Texas A&M last year, I would sign up for that right now.
I would agree. I think that's a good way to look at it because limitations. There's no way they're going to be this unbelievable dynamic passing offense with Bo Prebula, and all of a sudden you're just looking at them in such a different way. But if you have that element of a ground game that you can trust, and knowing that you're probably going to have to win games 24-21 a lot of the time, I think there is a way to make that work with the competition that they will face.
Agreed.
Sure.
All right, so Mizzou is off the board for Adam. Now, Adam, you have 2 picks here. Do we need a quick rundown of what's available? We're at the halfway point of this draft, which is kind of crazy to process. There's a lot of good teams still on the board here. Still on the board for you to be able to pick with these next 2. Arkansas, Auburn, Florida, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Vandy.
So I am going to go with Florida here. I think that's the smart pick.
Good value.
It's good value. It's a bet on DJ Lagway being able to start and finish more than 6 games this year. They're dynamite when he does that. There's schedule concerns here. There's obviously injury concerns since Lagway didn't throw this offseason and is already dealing with another injury. So, I don't know what that's about. We have, shameless plug here, but Florida Day in the Crystal Ball series is Sunday, and we have a columnist who we love, Neil Blackman, who's very plugged in to Florida. He's going to have a column on the backup quarterbacks that day. I wish that it was published yesterday so I could have read it and used it to advise my picks here, but he also has a column coming that day on Sunday, August 10th, that is about the Florida running game being overlooked. And I agree with that. Jaden Baugh is awesome. Corey Jackson, I think that's his name, is a solid backup. They have some guys. I mean, Webb just had a hamstring surgery, but it sounds like it was fairly minor. I don't know. But they have depth. They have, I think, probably one of the 2 best offensive lines in the league with Alabama. So, I think that the running game could get them through a couple of these games if Lagway does get banged up. But obviously, this is a big bet on Lagway. And I think that that's the reason that Florida fell to number 9. Because I think if we were to power rank them with a healthy Lagway, I think we would all have Florida higher than 9 in our power rankings. But
to your point, the problem is he's already hurt,
Right.
But throwing again in practice, the boot is off in practice. What it looks like from a context standpoint is going to be tough. You're just going to be holding your breath. Like that is what Florida fans have accepted already, and it's part of it. There is certainly an element to Florida's preseason outlook that would feel much sunnier if Lagway just had this clean bill of health and everything was perfectly fine. but the schedule is just still the looming part. We're not talking about it the same way that we did last year, but their first 3 power conference games are against preseason top 10 teams in the coaches bowl. That is 7 of their power conference games are in the preseason top 25. Like it's still a gauntlet, and there's still going to be this feeling of, man, what if he's limited for this game, or what if they don't really feel comfortable here? Like, are they going to be able to, if they're up 3 scores late in a game, is it time to pull Lagway? You can't risk him, having his ankle rolled on. Like, there are just going to be so many of those elements with this team. But you're right to bring up the point about the ground game. They're going to lean heavily on that. I mean, it's good to have a guy like Jake Slaughter, who's, for my money, the best returning offensive lineman in the SEC, maybe the best returning offensive player in the SEC, even considering, how valuable he is at his position. I know you could bring up a Ryan Williams, a Garrett Nussmeier, but they're going to lean heavily on that because it's Billy Napier. It's still Billy Napier. He still wants to be able to run the football and do that. And Jaden Baugh is getting slept on. I could not believe he wasn't preseason All-SEC. I thought that was an absolute joke. But it's good value. And you waited long enough, and there wasn't any way that they were going to get back to Will after the turn here and get into the double digits. So I think it was a smart move to take him at 9.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is where, like, I got to nail this pick because I don't pick again until 15. So I get the last pick of the draft here. So I got to nail this pick, and I'll just let you guys in on it. I'm between Oklahoma and Tennessee.
Yep. Have to be.
I am low on Tennessee this year. I don't I think, their over-unders at 8.5. I think that they're going to come in under that, but I'm going to take Tennessee over Oklahoma for this reason. Yes, they're on the road, but they have at Kentucky and at Mississippi State on their schedule. So they play what I assume are both of our bottom 2 teams in these rankings. Oklahoma plays neither of them. Tennessee's toughest non-conference game is the season opener versus Syracuse in Atlanta. I think that's Tennessee should be favored in that game. It should be a close game, but Oklahoma's marquee game is against Michigan, and that's in Oklahoma. So that's, but I just, for schedule alone, I'm taking Tennessee with the 10 pick here. I think that, like Bishop, I think he's not Dylan Sampson, but he's shown enough flashes of being something that, like, I think that the Tennessee run game can have success. He's not going to be, I don't think he's going to be like an all SEC finisher or anything like that. I think that the league is too deep with running backs. But, I think that he's going to have a good enough season. I think that Joey Aguilar is going to win the job. I think that, even if he has some Brett Favre in him and makes some mistakes, I think that they're going to have to develop some playmakers, like you wrote this week, Connor. They're just Josh Heupel. This is a bet on him. This is a bet on his offense. This is a bet on Tim Banks specifically on defense. And it's a bet on the schedule. I think that they can get to 7+ wins here. And, I don't think that they're going to make the playoff again, but if they get to 7 wins, I'll be happy with getting Tennessee here.
It's a great time for Tennessee to have Josh Heupel because, my God, if they did not, the questions we'd be asking about this team, and there are still legitimate questions, like real legitimate questions. Adam Sparks wrote about this on Sunday. There are 5 scholarship receivers that they had that were healthy. 4 of them were true freshmen, and one of them is a redshirt freshman transfer from Alabama. None of them had played last year. We talked about Oklahoma so much last year with the injuries that they dealt with at wide receiver and the questions that we had on the offensive line. And we have tons of questions about Tennessee's offensive line, which 4 newcomers on that offensive line. And then you got Lance Hurd, who's last year wasn't great. He'd be the first to tell you that. We're talking about a team that has been stable and has been exactly what Tennessee fans could have hoped for when they made this move post Jeremy Pruitt. But there is just so much instability and so many questions right now about a team that I wouldn't be stunned if they find a way to get it to 8-4. And that's a hat tip to Josh Heupel. It's a schedule that could allow for that. Only one true road game, weeks 1 through 7, and it's at Mississippi State. Like, you feel good about the way that they they start off, especially with how good Heupel's been at home. Only one home loss last 3 seasons. It was to Georgia in 23. So you feel good about all of those things because of Heupel. And you feel good because it's Tim Banks as well. But like they're 3 preseason all SEC guys. Boo Carter. He's been following that in the preseason, which we talked about in the last pod. A developing situation. We'll wait and see how much he plays. Jermod McCoy, working his way back from a torn ACL. No timetable on his recovery. And then Arian Carter, who's a really good player, and he's going to be like the
great
alpha.
guy. Love him. He's perfect.
Awesome.
Stay strong, kid.
But man, if you didn't have Josh Heupel on this team leading it, this could be a 3-9 type situation. I don't think Tennessee goes 3-9, and I think it's a smart pick at this stage. I had him at 8th on my board, and I have him at 8 just because I just kind of trust Heupel to figure it out. But it's not going to be an easy thing, and there could be a lot of moments where we're like, "Yeesh, what's the floor of Tennessee this year?"
Yeah, and not to like kind of jump in there, but I think you're exactly right. We have fully identified kind of the X variable here that Tennessee is going to have a certain level of chaos. So previously they had this level of chaos and they hired the wrong coach. Now they have the right coach, and that chaos is just still right there, isn't it? So I think that's a very good point. All right, guys. I think I'm up again. I know I'm up again. I was actually looking at a couple of those teams, but I'll say it like this. I think there is a tier break here. I think Tennessee is the last tier for me. On this last one, just because of Josh Heupel, and again, not to do schedule all day. So I'm going to take a little bit of a stab here. I'm going to go Auburn.
Interesting. Okay.
So the reason I like Auburn, again, not to just talk about schedule, but I feel like Baylor, winnable game. I think that Auburn they've been too loud, like I was talking about, right? They've just been too loud. The Hugh Freeze hire, sticking with quarterbacks. I think that they have had the ability. I think that Hugh Freeze is still a pretty good football coach. I find myself shuddering as I say that because obviously he has his off the field stuff. Obviously he has not looked at Auburn, and what we look for is adapt or die, and Hugh has not done that well. If you think about kind of his first couple of seasons and how he's kind of wasted Cam Coleman's career a little bit. But I think if you just look up and down that roster, there's
Cam Coleman was a good player at the end of last year.
He was a good
1 year
player.
in his career.
But if you look at the 3 guys, right, Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, and Cam Coleman, look at the lives they're living. He should be as well known as those 2 players, and Auburn is the reason why he's not.
The quarterback situation didn't do him any favors. Cam Coleman is a preseason first team All SEC guy.
For sure.
I won't say that's. You could look at. I think you could look at other true freshmen on that team and go, okay, maybe he's letting him down there. He did not surround him with the best quarterback, and if Jackson Arnold doesn't work out this year, then I think we would look at someone like Cam Coleman and go, man, it sucks that guy hasn't had a good quarterback yet. That might be a little bit more of a preemptive take than kind of what we've seen so far. Because
you see what I'm saying?
Awesome down the stretch last year.
It's the SpongeBob meme where Squidward was watching them play outside, and Cam Coleman was just kind of in Auburn, like in hell. And so, point being, I think Hugh Freeze is still a good football coach, right? And I think that if you look at the out of conference, the reason why I'm not taking Oklahoma is their schedule is absolute hell. And I mean, they travel to Philadelphia to go play Temple for some reason. I don't know how. Wait. Yeah, not saying that's a losable game. It just doesn't make a ton of sense. And you guys can get kind of tired and all that. And obviously, Oklahoma also plays Michigan. Whereas I feel like with Auburn, right, there are some breaks in here, and there are not a ton of those just automatic L's, right? They get Georgia at home. I think Georgia will beat them. They get Alabama at home, right? If they could find a way to split one of those 2 games, now we're really talking about something, because this is a Jordan Hare year, right? They have found a way somehow of all the chaos and the rivalry shifting and everything to keep Auburn in this weird treadmill where Georgia and Alabama are home and away, like they're on the same track every year, kind of weird. But point being, this is one of the home years, and I think that they already kind of had a little bit of that signature win with A&M last year. But there's no one other than those 2 teams that I feel like we haven't seen Hugh Freeze beat. If you look at the talent on their roster, I like the receivers. I like the lines. I kind of like Jackson Arnold from this scheme standpoint and what Hugh Freeze has been able to extract out of quarterbacks over the years. So, yeah, the more I think about it, the more I'm a little bit higher on Auburn than most people this year.
Well, I think just to mention here, Auburn and Oklahoma, both 7.5 win totals. Auburn is minus 170 on the over. Oklahoma's plus 120. So Vegas agrees with you. And those folks out there, they know what they're doing. So, I think that's a good pick. And I think that, Jackson Arnold, just by simply having receivers that are able to walk and play football, I think will be better just because of that. Now, is he going to be great? I don't know. But just by simply having receivers who are able to step onto a football field with full health, I think that he will take a step forward.
Deep ball has to get better, has to get more accurate. I pray that it does, because you're right. Cam Coleman would be let down if that is not the case, and we need to see that maximized. The schedule is very unique for an SEC schedule. 3 true road games before the calendar turns to October.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder about the collapse possibility and the floor with Auburn, of what it would look like if they lose that season opening game at Baylor, which that line's gone back and forth. I think it's been like Auburn was favored by 1.5, then Baylor's favored by 1.5. Who knows what that's going to look like by the time that's playing out, but that's a Friday night game in which it's going to have the full spotlight, could have potentially some 2023 Florida at Utah vibes to it, with a standalone game that everybody's overreacting to, with a coach that's, facing obviously a prove it type season. And at the same time, there are people that have talked themselves into Auburn being in playoff contention late in the season. And there are people that look at this defense and go, well, it was really good last year. And if they get a quarterback that doesn't turn the football over the way that not Jackson Arnold, but the way that Peyton Thorne did last year, then that's a winning combination. It still doesn't fully, for me, cover up the Hugh Freeze factor and what it looks like for him to actually beat quality teams. 4-16 against AP top 25 teams since 2016, if you're keeping track at home. But Auburn had to be picked before probably this bottom tier. And I'll at least acknowledge that. I would have considered them with my next pick had you not picked them.
Yeah, like I said, I just think they're frisky, man. I think that they are fully backed into a corner, and I think that from their standpoint, it just goes underrated, the good things they've done from recruiting at the high school level, because Hugh Freeze is so folksy and loud and he wants to talk about golf and he wants to make bad decisions on the field. That's my scouting report for Auburn this year.
On that note. Okay, so then that means I obviously have to go with Oklahoma. I'll go with Oklahoma here, even though I didn't think I'd get them, because I've said repeatedly throughout the offseason I am somewhat of a John Mateer skeptic. I want to see how this plays out against a really difficult schedule. And the fact that they get all of these games to start off the schedule that feel at least somewhat favorable could bode well, and that could allow him to work through some of that stuff, build up some trust with Brent Venables. That's going to be a really big thing, because the only true road game through week 7 is at Temple, as you mentioned. The problem is that they finished the season with 7 consecutive SEC games against teams that won at least 9 games last year.
Mm-hmm.
Do I sell midway through with Oklahoma? Do I try and work out a trade? Should I be saying this out loud? Probably not.
Get ready to learn Kentucky, buddy.
Oh, man. I might. I don't feel great about that just because of the limited ceiling, but who knows? If John Mateer ends up being in the Heisman discussion as our guy Chris Doering has mapped out for him, then all bets are off the table. It is still Oklahoma, despite what 2 of the last 3 years has told us with a losing season. But Oklahoma comes off the board at 12.
And this 13 pick is going to be another key inflection point here at the end of the draft. I've already resigned myself to one of my bottom 2 teams, but the way that this plays out could determine a lot between Will and Connor here.
Yeah, I know. Will, tell me who you want more.
I wanted the second pick to avoid this exact situation.
I think he wants Kentucky, right? Right, Will?
No.
Don't take Kentucky from him, Connor.
Yeah, don't rip them out by clutching hands.
With all due respect to the great people in the Bluegrass State, Kentucky will not be the pick here. Screw it. We go Pavia. We go Vandy.
Okay, there we go. Let's ride.
We go Vandy. We go with a team that's 8th in the country in percentage of returning production. Or at least that was Bill Connolly's number back in February. It is still going to be difficult for this team to sustain success. And I tend to think that as long as Diego Pavia has 2 legs, he's going to have a chance. I think he had 1.5 last year. I think he had 1.5 for the majority of the season, and it didn't really get talked about enough. But there is still that part of me that thinks 2 and 10 is possible, and that everybody who wants to see Diego Pavia humbled will get their wish this year. That's on the table. But this late in the draft, I'm getting a guy who was an all-SEC quarterback last year, who gets the best returning tight end in college football with Eli Sowers, and a defensive-minded coach who looked like he figured things out last year, even though he is unfortunately transitioning back into his role as head coach and not just overseeing the defense. But they didn't have this massive turnover. It's not like they all of a sudden lost this piece, that piece, and the other. They're actually willing to use the transfer portal more so than ever. I mean, I just tend to think that Vandy has a better chance of getting back to a bowl game than probably what the consensus would say. Because what's that over? Is that over under 4 or 4.5 wins this year, Adam?
5.5,
Okay.
but the over is plus 130. So
yeah. So if I'm getting to a bowl, if I'm getting my last team in here to a bowl game with a possibility of getting a bowl victory, which Lord knows Vandy would take that seriously. This would be a Super Bowl. Diego Papi ain't sitting out a bowl game. Maybe there's some baked in luck with that. So that's why I'll go with Vandy here instead of the other obvious pick who was just sitting there. And maybe I'll regret not taking Arkansas, but I left him for you, Will.
Whew. Man, thank you for that, I guess. This is, you look at these last couple teams and you really – so hope you guys have started like a book club if you're a fan of one of these teams. There's a lot of the SEC guys, it cannot be understated how you just can't hide if your team is like rudderless is the word I would use. Like if you kind of just get off the tracks a little bit, your quarterback gets hurt, your coordinator isn't who you thought he was, offensive line gets hurt, and suddenly you are just free falling to hell. And for that reason, yeah, Arkansas is the pick here. Now, again, it's so weird because it's like I said, I'm looking for these teams at the top: Texas, LSU, Alabama, Georgia, and it's like a couple of these bad teams, like, oh, they get all of them. Oh, and Arkansas also has Notre Dame. Oh, and also and so they're at Memphis for some reason. So point being, like, there's just not really a ton of ways to hide here. But the reason why I can be high on Arkansas, Bobby P and Taylor Green, and at the end of the day, if I'm going to be watching a bad team, it better be this team. Because this could be the most fun. Man. This could be the most fun, terrible team we've ever seen. Our Four Loco quarterback, because Taylor Green's be out there playing for pride. He's not going to check himself out of anything. Bobby Petrino, they're not banging down this door trying to give him another job offer. So these guys truly are just locked in. Pittman, we love Sam Pittman. He's been so gracious to us. I think he's a great coach. I think the schedule really sets him up for failure. And if he were to get let go mid-season, his heir apparent, unfortunately, is right there in the building. And that guy and his quarterback, again, it doesn't matter what happens at Arkansas. We're playing for our future jobs. And when that's in a situation, you can go steal a win, and you can at least make me not hate myself for drafting like Kentucky or State.
Well, you hit the nail on the head because the schedule would terrify me.
Yes.
And that's what scared me off and why I went Vandy, because games 3 through 6, Arkansas is going to see nothing but FBS teams that won at least 10 games last year, 3 of which are on the road. And then the one home game is, by the way, just against last year's runner-up Notre Dame. So that's not going to be fun. And for a coach that's on the hot seat, I would be worried about a November that feels like it is just in total free fall disarray. It's just such a strange team to project, because in some ways they should benefit so much from the fact that their 3 top coaches are still there, but they had half of their scholarship players transfer. They had 42 guys that hit the portal. It just doesn't happen. And so as much as I love Sam Pittman, and people know that, I couldn't even muster picking them with my last pick. I went with going with Vandy instead of Arkansas. It feels wrong, but who knows? The schedule could make it seem a lot more right than it actually is.
It's not yesterday's Vandy either.
This is true.
All right, Adam, do the honors, brother.
So,
Mr. Relevant.
I mean, I think I've already hinted at where I'm going here because I told Connor to learn Kentucky. So that's the team that's going to be not drafted. I think Kentucky could legitimately go 2-10 this year. I like Mark Stoops. I don't understand the plan on offense.
Well, neither does he, so that's good.
Yeah, I mean,
you guys have alignment there.
All of these games, they might only beat Eastern Michigan and Tennessee Tech this year. So I'm picking Mississippi State. This is a again with my Florida pick. I need Blake Shapen to stay healthy. I think Blake Shapen is a decent to good quarterback when he's healthy. That at Southern Miss in week 1, that's a weird game. That's one that they got to be careful with, because I wouldn't be surprised if they lost that game. But
Did
you know,
Brett
I
Adam
think
tell me this as a Packer fan? Did Brett Favre finance their football stadium too, or is that just volleyball?
We're on to Jordan Love.
Okay.
Jordan Love is our quarterback, and we love Love. Can't wait to see how weird he becomes when he leaves the Packers, because that's apparently what happens to quarterbacks when they leave the Packers. But anyway, if they can get past Southern Miss, then I think that there's 3 or 4 wins on this Mississippi State schedule. So I'll take that. Also, when you're one of the bad teams, you don't get to play yourself. So, but Kentucky doesn't even get to play Arkansas. So Mississippi State does get to play Arkansas. Now that's in Fayetteville, so that's tough. But this is a bet on Blake Shapen. This is a bet on, I like Booth and Bothwell in the backfield. I think that the offense is going to be okay, as long as Shapen stays healthy again. But I'd rather take the upside of a healthy Blake Shapen for the full year than whatever I'm going to get from Kentucky.
Shout out Fluff Bothwell, by the way.
Yeah, right. Great name.
Just all name team legend. Betting on the year 2 Jeff Lebby offense isn't crazy.
Yeah.
It's not crazy. His track record's very good. Now, he's been in situations that have been, dare I say, more favorable than
Now they have
Mississippi State.
They have a good backup quarter, or an intriguing backup quarterback. Yes, that's the guy
from Florida State, who was decorated recruit, was one of those thrown into the fire last year. Participant subject to the Florida State situation, so it's hard to really gauge a whole lot. I tried to watch, I think, every snap he played last year when I was doing my transfer portal quarterback rankings for the SEC, and he was at the end of it.
You don't get hazard pay for that, just so you know.
It was ugly. It was ugly, but Jeff Lebby tends to figure out his personnel a little bit better. You're right. Blake Shapen staying healthy. Somebody that's 25 years old. He's got to be 25 or something like that, who throws a really nice deep ball. They could kind of be frisky and give off some 2018 Ole Miss type vibes, maybe, but still a schedule that's really difficult. And if Mississippi State makes it to a bowl game this year, it'd be stunning. It really would.
Stunning.
So yeah.
Stunning. I'll say real quick, what's funny is as I was trying to talk myself to Mississippi State, I was like, Lebby, I like him a lot. He could be like the next Kenny Dillingham. And I click on their schedule. I go, oh my God, they play Kenny Dillingham.
Again, yeah.
Again, yeah. Because last year, those teams lived, or I guess really Arizona State just also lived 1,000 lives. And so that was seen as like, but then now they're number 12 in this schedule. So it's like, just
side note here though, that was like when you're covering just, inside baseball here, but when you're covering like a Saturday, like these week 2 games, like Auburn had a game at Cal, LSU went out to UCLA one year, like Mississippi State going out to Arizona State last year. I don't think we have one of those this year in the SEC. I can't think of one off the top of my head.
That's a good point. We don't have a weird Pac-12 After Dark is no longer a thing, but last year that was the Pac-12 After Dark game. I'm pretty sure it started at 10:30 Eastern.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I stayed up and watched all of it. Fell in love with Cam Scadaboo. God, he was so good that night too. He was really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have one of those, do we?
I don't think so. And from a guy who has to cover all the games on Saturdays, like. Yeah, let's not schedule. Let's bring those guys east.
I hear Hugh Freeze really likes Berkeley though. Might be taking a trip back there sometime soon in his free time.
I hear that he has a guy that he can commiserate with Auburn about out that way.
There you go.
Yeah. One Brian Harsin. I'm sure Brian Harsin loves Berkeley too. He's really fitting in. See, culture fit there. Makes a lot of sense.
Oh yeah.
All right, so we have Kentucky as the free agency team. That means we can trade one of our teams to pick up Kentucky, and that is probably not going to happen. But who knows? Desperate times call for desperate measures. Zach Calzada turns out to be the guy. Who knows? Never say never. Maybe Zach Calzada with his 4th team He was good at Incarnate Word. He was good, but we'll see. So the way that this shook out, let's go through who everybody ended up with. I had Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, and Vandy. Will, you had Alabama, South Carolina, Mizzou, Auburn, and Arkansas. And Adam, you had Texas, LSU, Florida, Tennessee, and Mississippi State. Who won the draft?
I think I'm lacking in brand names, I've realized, but boy, I'm going to be the biggest Bama homer because, yeah.
Kane Womack, you all in, Will?
Womack, it's my guy.
I think Adam had the best draft. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Adam, straight up, do you want to trade teams? 5 for 5.
I mean, yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this. It all comes down to DJ Lagway for me. Like it really, really does. So,
if LSU wins a national championship, I suppose you're winning this as well.
Yeah.
That getting a playoff team with your 4th pick is probably favorable. If we added up all of the over unders, I think Adam would have this. I
think so too, because Tennessee's over under was 8.5, and I got him at 10. So I think that would put me over the top there. But
you got a ton of that chunk. Like we talked about, kind of the top tier. You got a couple of those. Whereas, like I was talking about, it's like I almost wanted to avoid getting stuck with 2 of the teams that I didn't want to root for. So I got a team of mid plus is what I got. I'm excited about mid plus this year. Connor, how are you feeling?
Decent. I really like being able to get Ole Miss and A&M with my 2nd and 3rd pick, just because I think there's some really good value with, kind of how they're viewed nationally. I had them higher than the consensus with the preseason order finish, but man, I'll be honest, like sitting here projecting an Oklahoma season feels very, very difficult. And I've been lower on them than a lot of other people. And the possibility of Vandy being 2-10 again is just always sitting right there. So, I don't feel as good as I would like to, but I'll say decent. Like I said, Adam, the 5 for 5 trade is available if you want it.
I'll crunch the numbers. I'll have my guys crunch the numbers, and we'll get back to you on that one.
Sounds good. So we will we'll update the people on this. Maybe we'll just update the people. That'll be like our replacement of drafts. We'll just update the people on the standings, how this is playing out. If any sort of trades happen, we'll be able to do it that way. But yes, we will. I'll have to do a lot of math to be able to figure all this out. We'll do a vote as well on Twitter who won this draft, or maybe the better way to do this, since we actually have a scoring system, is who will win this draft, and then we'll see how the people feel about that and what we did with our first draft of SEC teams. All right, let's kick it to Jalin Hyatt. Got to talk about the Vols, his physical transformation, what he's been undergoing, heading into year 3 in the NFL, which is just crazy to process for the former Blitnikoff Award winner. We got to talk about some of his new teammates that obviously were big household names in college football as well. So here is Jalin Hyatt. I'm now excited to be joined by a very special guest. It is Tennessee legend Jalin Hyatt, current New York Giants receiver. This is the 3rd time that you've joined the show, and every single time, even dating back to when you were in college, we've been talking about the single most obvious partnership in human history. Jalin Hyatt, World of Hyatt, the last name and the company. It was always going to be a relationship that was going to happen. Tell us about the latest that you got going on with them.
But yeah, this is my 3rd year, with Hyatt. Man, it's been a great partnership. Definitely my favorite, just because of everything that we kind of have envisioned, and what we want to do. It's my favorite hotel, obviously. But not only that, it's because of how they treat their customers. What they do with their hotels and with their resorts. I think we share that commitment of prioritizing the well-being and always being there for their customers. And not only that, I've been to a lot of Hyatt resorts, a lot of Hyatt hotels, and just from a hotel aspect, they treat their customers so well, and that's something I wanted to be a part of, and I want to continue to build this.
They probably have a picture of you just behind every front desk of every Hyatt hotel, just in case you walk in, right?
We're getting there.
Let's start with all things Tennessee. Last time you were on, I hate to bring this up. It was right before the playoff game. You were not alone in thinking that the Vols had a good shot against Ohio State. And then, Jeremiah Smith happened, and it didn't help that Tennessee players were just dropping like flies in that game. What was harder, watching that game or having to show up in the locker room the next day?
I think both. Both of it was hard. I really wanted my Vols to win. I know Hype dialed up a good game plan, but like you said, the players they had over there at Ohio State, I know it was difficult. And obviously we got some players here, in the Giants locker room, that had Ohio State over Tennessee, and I was telling them, nah, we're gonna win this, and they had a lot to say, after the game. But I'm really excited to see what they'll do this year. Just to see, what Coach Hype and what he's going to bring, with the new quarterback that came in, with Nico leaving. So it's going to be fun to watch. They have a hard schedule this year, but I think they'll get it done. It'll be a good year for them.
What'd you make of the Nico drama that played out this offseason?
Yeah, obviously, it's hard because I really like Nico, as a quarterback and really as a player. I met him before I left for the draft. Time he got there, I met him, and all that he had a good year, his first year, and just with NIL and a whole bunch of things that's going on in college football. I can't really speak on what he wanted to do, or what was the background towards that decision that he made, but. Just I really wanted him to be there, but now it's football, so you got to find the next man up, and I know Coach Hype, he's very very good at figuring out his quarterbacks, figuring out who he wants to call his offense, and it's gonna be fun to watch and to see what how it pans out.
It was early in the NIL era when you were in college and guys were still figuring that out. And, like your partnership, that was one of those things that over the course of the season that plays out and you get these opportunities that are presented to you. And it's going to feel a lot different now with the way that these contracts are constructed, where it seems like there's a lot more front end type stuff and renegotiating and all that. Did your team endure any of that with the NIL drama? Was there any of that stuff internally of, hey, this guy's getting this and we don't think he's worth this? Or like, how did you guys settle that to make sure that wasn't something that ever saw the light of day for people like us in the media?
Yeah, I mean, when I was in college, like you said, it kind of just started. NIL kind of just started, so nobody really had a pinpoint on, with contracts and a lot of things that's going on now in football. It was a little different, but time I left, and 2 years after, seeing how college football kind of unfolded with NIL, and how it's kind of taken over college football. It's definitely been completely different. Just with everything. And we never, when I was there at Tennessee, we never really, at that time, really got in depth with NIL just because of how early it was. And nowadays, it's blowing up, and everybody has this deal, or contract here, contract there. Just the biggest thing. I just hope it just doesn't take the love, the love out of college football, the love of why you want to go to this team, why you want to go to this university, because at the end of the day, it's not really about the money. It's really about why you want to go to that university, what made you want to go to Tennessee, or what made you want to go here. And I just hope that just doesn't take the love, for the players, the college players that's there now, just not trying to search for money, actually, love the university that they're at. And that's what we did when, we was at the University of Tennessee.
I don't think I've ever asked you this, but what was it that sold you on Tennessee? Because so many different iterations of Tennessee have unfolded over the course of the last 15, 20 years. And I got to imagine there were a lot of different things that you had to consider with that process. But like, what was it that really said, I just feel like I'm such a fit here and this is where I belong?
Yeah, before I committed to Tennessee, I was actually committed to Virginia Tech. And during that process, at that time, it was Jeremy Pruitt as our head coach. T. Martin was our receivers coach at that time before he took the job for the Ravens. When I committed, Coach T. Martin, he always called me even after I committed to Virginia Tech. He called me. He's like, "Man, we need you here. We need you here. We need you here." And over time, he just sold me. He sold me on it. He sold me just with how the University of Tennessee, with the fans, the game day experience, the SEC vibes of, playing college football. Everybody wants to be in the SEC. And not only that, I felt like, just with Tennessee at that time, you know, uh, once they wanted to be great, I knew what Tennessee can bring out. And, my junior year when we played, I mean, it showed, just with fans. I remember going to, we had a game against LSU over there in Baton Rouge, and it was just all orange, and things like that is the reason on why you want to go to the University of Tennessee or schools like that, just based off just the love of the game. Even when I was on campus there, at the University of Tennessee, I had so many people come up to me just because of football and what Tennessee brings out of that. And that's why I always tell everybody, the young guys who, gets recruited by Tennessee, or anybody who, kind of thinking about going to the University of Tennessee, I always bring out the fans, because at the end of the day, that's what matters. That's what gets you going on game days. It's nothing better than 7:30 primetime game, going out there, going out out on the tee, and you just see 102 or 103, however much is in that stands, and it just brings out adrenaline, brings out the best of you. And that was one of the biggest reasons on why I wanted to go to Tennessee.
How different are Jeremy Pruitt and Josh Heupel?
Very different. Very different. The reason why I say that is because Pruitt's a more defensive minded coach, defensive minded head coach. And then you have Coach Hype, who's more of an offensive minded head coach. So we have an offensive minded and a defensive minded head coaches. They're completely different on practice structure, game day structure. And it's nothing better than having an offensive head coach, that's there, that believes in you, and, that gets us going. So that's probably the biggest difference.
I was going to say one knows what asparagus is, one doesn't know what asparagus is, but that's a different story. Had you seen two-a-days before Pruitt started recruiting you?
Say it again. I'm sorry.
Had you seen the show Two-A-Days on MTV back in the day before Pruitt started
I
recruiting
haven't.
you?
I haven't. No, sir. No, sir.
YouTube it.
Yeah, I
YouTube it.
will. I will. I definitely will now. I definitely will.
All this drama that Tennessee had with the Nico situation, and if I don't know how much you've been following like the Boo Carter situation, but there's been these things that have happened over the course of the year with Tennessee that makes you feel like, oh man, there's a lot that's unfolding here. I kind of come back to Heupel being the perfect guy to handle all that. What makes him the ideal person in a job that, for whatever reason, just always cultivates chaos?
One thing about Hype that I love about him is he has a backbone, and the reason why I say that is because it's his way or no way. And if you want to be a part of what's his plan, if you want to be a part of his journey on getting you better, he will get the best out of you, the best version out of you, and that's one thing that he always demands every day. And if you're not a part, if you don't want to be a part of that, if you kind of want to do your own thing, if you kind of want to, I don't really want to do this, Coach Hype, you're not going to be there long. Coach Hype is very, very demanding on doing it with his plan and his way. And not only that, we seen it work. We seen his vision. And that's why I hope the people that the players that's there now, they stay committed to that, because Coach Hype, he's very, very experienced, and not only that, he has a lot of contacts, close contacts that helps him that do that. And I love Coach Pope, that's still there, the receiver coach. He helped me, tremendous respect for him, just for how he helped me, throughout my career when he was there, especially my junior year, going into my junior year. And they have the right coaches in the building, they have the right players in the building. They just have to bring it all together. And that's one thing Coach Hype is very good at, is bringing the whole team together. Even when one person or two people, want to do their own thing, he's going to get everybody back to the Tennessee way. And that's one thing I respect about him.
Did you ever have any thought about transferring after your sophomore year?
Uh,
That's a yes.
at that time, like you said, I didn't play a lot my sophomore year. It was, Bayless Jones was in the slot at that time. And at that time it was all, oh, transfer portal. And I never forget, I went to Coach Hype's office one day. I wasn't going up there to transfer or anything, just went up to talk. And he told me his vision that he seen that next year, with him and Hooker, with Bayless Jones leaving, with Javante Payton leaving, with said, the vision that he told me. He was like, look, if you do your job, if you get the playbook down, you do your job, and you do it at a high level, this is what I envision. And it came to life. And I seen it with my own eyes. And That's why I have so much respect for Coach Hyatt because he's not just thinking about this year, but he's thinking about 4 years down the line, 3 years, 5 years down the line, and that's what makes him a great coach. Just because of how smart he is, and I was just blessed for the opportunity to play for him.
And if you had gotten that answer that day saying, "Hey man, I don't really think you're a fit in this offense," then that's when that starts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If I went in the office and he told me, "Look, man, we don't really see you here," and then it might have been a different story.
Yeah, but then he tells you, "Oh, you're actually going to win the Bolitnikoff Award next year, and you're going to be a huge reason why we beat Alabama. So just stick around; it'll be fine." So you went through an offseason transformation. How much weight did you put on, and how did you do it?
Yeah, it was very, very hard. I played about 172, 173 last year. Now, about, 187, kind of lost weight now just because we're in training camp, but about 187, 188. So, put on some good muscle. That was really the biggest thing that I wanted to do this year just because I knew, I was going to play more on the outside. And I'm going to go against more physical corners, in this league. And like I said, in Tennessee, I was a slot. So, I kind of had more space. I had space to work what I had to do. But here it's more bang bang plays. So, I just wanted to get more physical, in that aspect. And that's something that I try my best to work on this upcoming year going to training camp. So far everything's been good. It's just what I need to do is just maintain the weight, maintain, the physical, being physical. So that's the biggest thing I'm working on.
Is it hard for you to maintain weight?
I'm a easy. I burn a lot of calories, and for me, I can eat 3, 4 meals and go out run, and then the scale won't go up, at all. So for me, it was just really more of being consistent, consistency with meals, with calories, with protein. So that was the biggest thing I had to get right with, and I had to get with a chef and plan my meals out, not just junk food or junk meals. I had to actually get the right protein, get the right carbohydrates. So that was the biggest thing I really had to learn going into this year.
What does the daily diet look like for you right now?
In the morning, I'm a over easy egg type guy. I like the over easy eggs, sausage, bacon, and then usually during that lunch period, protein with carbs. So either it's steak, either it's chicken, rice, anything that especially with rice with being the carbs, just to get me going more. Dinner, same thing. Something nothing that's too much on your body, something that's gonna lean you out, while you're gaining weight. So just trying to focus on that.
Is it like a specific calorie count that you feel like you want to hit in a specific day? Or you just tracking macros with like protein, carbs, like fat content, all that?
I did. I kind of let my chef do all that as far as hitting the right numbers. For me, it's just the plate's ready and I just eat it. You know what I mean? But my chef has all that figured out.
Was there a moment, a realization, something that happened that made you think I want to bulk up a little bit? Even it's something like, Malik's emergence last year, Malik Neighbors, who became obviously an outstanding part of your team and such a key part of your receiver room, like him being able to play in the slot as much. You talk about knowing that you're going to be playing outside more. Was there a specific instance that it kind of clicked for you, like, I should probably play at a different weight than I've played it in my entire career?
Yeah, I think for me, just really when I have the ball in my hands, making people miss, breaking tackles, not letting the first defender take you down, was really the biggest. And not only that, with contested catches, when it's bang bang plays, when the ball's in the air, and you run in the end breaker, and the DB collapses, and it's a bang bang play going up for the ball. That comes down to strength, that comes down to hand strength, that comes down to obviously being focused, but just being physical, at the ball point. And just looking at my film last year and talking to coaches last year, up here with Dave's, that's something that I felt like, okay, this is something in this area we need to work on. Bang bang plays, contested catches, running after the catch, the yak yards, not letting the first guy bring you down. So, that's kind of what I want to show more this year.
What are your early impressions of Jackson Dart so far?
I love him. I love him. I told Dart, I said, man, you should have went to Tennessee. Yeah, I told her he would have went crazy at Tennessee. I knew, if he went to Tennessee, Coach Height would have loved him. But Man, he's a great player. Just as a work standpoint, how he comes into the building. He's a very smart player. That's the first thing I noticed about him. How smart he is. He learned his playbook very, very quickly. And not only that, I mean, when he goes out there, you can tell he has the confidence. He's throwing deep balls. Me and him actually connected, in day 2 in training camp, on the go ball. And right before the play, we're in the huddle. He's telling me, "Look, Hyatt, I'm throwing to you." And I knew the ball was coming, and he threw a beautiful back shoulder, and that just brings out the confidence in him. And I think he's just gonna continue to get better. This is year 1 for him. He's gonna be a very, very good player. For him, it's just keeping his confidence high and just watching Russ. Watching how Russ deals with what he does, and taking little things from him and putting into his game. But I think Jackson Dart's gonna be a very great player, very good player.
Do you have a Jameis Winston story yet?
And,
That's a yes too.
everybody asks me that. Everybody asks me that. Nothing. I'll say this: nothing crazy yet. Nothing crazy yet. But I know sooner or later it will happen. I know, and then when I do, you'll hear it first. You have my word.
That first Jameis pregame pep talk is going to be
Oh man,
electric.
that's really what I'm waiting for. That's really what I'm waiting for.
How fun, another, speaking of new additions to your team, how fun is Cam Scattaboo?
I love Scat. He's gonna be a very good player. I mean, he's very confident. I met him time he came in for OTAs. That was the first day I met him, and I brought up his game that he had. I think it was as in the bowl game. I brought that up, and but I mean, I'm very impressed with him. I mean, he has very, very good hands, out the backfield. That's one thing I was impressed about. But not only that, I mean, we were just in pads the other day and just seeing how he gets low, how he runs under his pads and how one guy really just doesn't bring him down. He's a bowling ball back there, and he's going to be a very good player for us.
I think he can throw too. That's the crazy thing.
We might have to put him on a little double pass, huh?
Yeah, you got like 5 guys you got to get on the same page with throwing the football. Jalin, last one for you. How often do you close your eyes and just daydream about Alabama's coverage on you in 22?
They stayed in cover 4. That Coach Hype. When we were game planning against him, that's something that Saban does. He loves the quarters. He loves quarters. And only thing with quarters is you gotta have the players to be able to guard if you're gonna be in quarters. They kept coming downhill. They kept coming downhill, and the first 2 ones was easy for me. But after that, they try to start getting into some man, but that's not gonna work either. So I mean, Coach Hype, he had it all figured out. That's why I say that if you have the vision, if the players believe in Coach Hype, they believe in what he wants to do, that team can go as far as they want to, because I mean he's so smart and knowing the coverage, knowing what they're in already and changing it pre-snap and just letting your quarterback and your receiver play ball. And that's one thing that he does so well. And I just can't wait to see what they do this year.
So like 3 times a day. That's funny. Yeah, I definitely would. Jalin, on behalf of World of Hyatt, really appreciate the time. Best of luck with everything this year, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, well, let's close with some lad of the week. We have the same lad of the week, and I feel okay sharing this because this was something that you shared with me initially before I saw it. So I think we can both piggyback on this because it's very much, it couldn't be more my demo than it actually is. New Mexico coach Jason Eck was the main actor in a Scott's Tots spoof. And for those who don't know Scott's Tots, it is the single most cringe episode of television history, courtesy of The Office. It is an episode that I've seen 1.5 times.
Would you put that more cringe than the dinner?
Dinner Party is the best episode ever.
That's the thing. The dinner party was so laugh out loud funny that it kind of like gave you a little bye week from the cringe. Scott's Tots was kind of like it was like you knew it was coming, and it was how he was going to handle it.
She took me by the hand. No, we're not going down there. He's great. He's great. Snip snap. The spoof can go so wrong if you're not committed to the bit. Jason Eck, nothing but praise, because that guy bought in. And if you've seen the video that New Mexico put out there, Basically, it was like a call with his AD, and the call is cutting out, and the AD is saying to Jason Eck, "Hey, you should offer free." And he's trying to say you should offer free football tickets to these kids, to any kid under the age of 12, and instead Jason Eck takes it as free tuition to New Mexico, and we get a Scott's Tots situation with Jason Eck speaking in front of this classroom, and it's just chef's kiss. Why everybody doesn't just spoof The Office is beyond me. South Carolina did a great job of that a few years ago. Suck it, Carl Lewis. Just only spoof The Office. You don't have to spoof anything else. Seinfeld was over by the time that these kids were even born, so don't do that. You're going to seem old. Kids still watch The Office. It's wonderful. That is the closest thing to Scott's Tots that I can watch.
Yeah, it was, and I believe that was it was a collab with Sicko's Committee, right? Where like that account
Was it really?
Yes, and so I think, or at least they were like heavily, they were tagged in it and everything, and so like I think they were like helped in the promo there. So it's cool to watch like a guy really be part of the culture of college football, right? Where it's like, hey, you're kind of in on the joke, you're not taking yourself too seriously, you're doing a great acting job, and we're talking about you here on a podcast. And I wish that more coaches would take themselves less seriously. Would really, I don't know. Did you hear that Rich Rod quote at West Virginia this week, where he's like, none of my running backs can get through a drill because we don't let them use traders.
In Rich Rod's defense, if he's anything but that, I'm upset.
Right.
Not Rich Rod levels of upset, but I'm upset. I want Rich Rod to be the most Rich Rod version of himself possible in his return to West Virginia. But I do like it when coaches are actually willing to have fun like this and lean into the bit. Understand that, you might look a bit minor league baseball-ish, but you know what? You had an average of 15,000 paid attendance last year, something like that. You need to get people in the stadium. You need to get people in the stadium that actually care about your
Twitter
your
is not verified, folks.
Neither is mine, but that's just because I don't want to pay for it.
Yeah.
There at least was at one point. The amount of people that care about New Mexico football, you're fighting an uphill battle. I mean, and plus it's Albuquerque. So much to do in Albuquerque. A lot going on. Tough to get people to come out to your football games. Kids 12 and under. Smart promo, really smart promo. I kind of forgot that this was a first year coach situation. Everybody forgets Bronco Mendenhall was actually there, which
he sure was, wasn't he? Yeah, it's been a weird. Yeah,
I erased that from my memory. Whenever I've mentioned New Mexico football, it has been either in relation to New Mexico State with Diego Pavia or something Zach Arnett related. So, but Lobos hit that over. I think the over is what, like 3.5 wins, something like that. They're 2,000 to 1. No, that can't be right. I think they're 200 to 1 to win the Mountain West this year. So believe in something.
Yeah, this is there's 5 total games to this. This is like a really, really good promo. The way that they message this, the way that their sales department and their marketing department work together to create this social piece, that was kind of a partnership. Now I'm just talking like market speak, right? But I think it's really cool. Like they tagged The Office and Peacock and got everybody involved. So it's like, that was kind of the point I was making with Rich Rod. Like if you're a team that is objectively like kind of not, you're known around town as being a little bit sorry. If you could just get people involved and say, hey, take your kids out to the ball games, have a good time here. Let's make it silly, as opposed to like, we're going to get in here and crack some skulls. It's like that stuff never works, or it rarely works, And so I would rather guys just be real about it and say, hey, we're of this community. Let's get everybody in here and have a great time.
I'm surprised that Ryan Bamford wasn't first on this. UMass is begging for something like that. Somewhat of a local reference that would have been, at least in the northeast part of the country. It is one of those things as a parent, though. You do start trying to figure out where are the places where my kid gets in free.
If UCF did this, would you go? Assuming you didn't cover college football, like let's just say it was like an off week or whatever, would you go?
No, because what sort of situation would that be, where it would have to be a Friday night game or a Thursday night game, which true. They've had those. Yeah. They've had those. I was actually it was 3 years ago, so it was before Claire was born, and UCF was playing a Friday night game, and Laura and I were going to go just to the tailgate. My buddy Drew had a tailgate, but we weren't going to be able to go until after work, until we finished everything. By the time we were driving across 436, and we were 15, 20 minutes in. We're like, it's going to take an hour to get there to Oviedo. And that is just not a fun drive. And by the time we were going to get there, we were going to basically have like a half hour.
Yeah.
And with all due respect, if you're driving longer than the time you're actually going to be there, it wasn't going to be worth it. So even UCF is kind of oddly tough to get to with where we're located at times. So that's a long-winded way of saying probably not, just not a lot of situations in which I would be tempted to go to UCF and I wouldn't be missing out on other things because I don't want to miss out on anything else.
Yeah, go see your local football team, folks, if you're close. I think we're in unique situations because we're like in cities. You know, I would love to go see a Tech game. I still have not done that. I was actually about to go to one of them whenever COVID hit. But yeah, maybe I could look and see if their schedule this week. But I think that's what we're losing. You know, as we get to the bigger conferences and everything, it's such a national event, and it's like if you guys got a local team, Georgia State game, just go check it out if they're playing on Thursday or something. It could be super fun.
Yeah. I'd like to get to more games in person this year. Something I'm prioritizing, trying to find a few games in the schedule that would be able to make sense. Hopefully I'll be able to do that. Hey, we're going to have actual football in 3 weeks? 3 weeks? Less than? Week 0 is less than 3 weeks away.
Yeah, it is.
That? That's all that people need to know. Week 0 is not good, but still, it is actual football, and that's all we care about this time of year. We will hopefully be going back to 2 pods a week very, very soon. We had conversations this week to be able to push us in that direction. I am hoping that will happen not next week, but the week after that. That is the tentative plan to be able to make that work. We will update the people with that schedule when we're able to roll that out. Please leave us a 5-star review. Subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch every single episode of the Saturday Down South podcast. Follow us on Twitter at the SDS Pod, at Sat Down South, at CJ Rivera, at Go So Hard. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.